Yesterday you were chatting about the court ruling, the judge's ruling, and you kind of hinted that maybe the notwithstanding clause was on the table here. Constitutional lawyers say that's, out of the question. Yep. So number one, why bring it up? And number two, what are kind of your options if you do appeal and you lose?
Well, the Constitution does give rights to provinces and to the federal government, and I think that there's some grounds to be able to challenge the court decision on this in particular, because my concern is that it's an overread and an overreach on the issue of duty to consult. Duty to consult, as I understand it, has been project specific. It's you have a particular project, it has particular impact on the adjacent bands when it comes to their hunting, fishing and trapping rights, maybe use of water. And so there's a very defined project that you have to do, and you have a defined duty to consult. I have no idea how the court would expect a citizens group to be able to meet the duty to consult that was just made up in that judgment. And so that's why it needs to be challenged, is because otherwise it could potentially negate our Citizens Initiative Act, and it could be a reach-in of the court on every single bill that we could ever pass that could ever possibly have an impact on First Nations. And that is a pretty dramatic curtailment of provincial rights under the Constitution. So I think I would encourage you to look at it more broadly, that when these court decisions are left unappealed, it can lead to consequences like we see in British Columbia, where they thought that they were passing just statements of intent and cooperation, and now their entire property rights and development regime is under uncertainty because of court decisions. So we don't want to go down that path in Alberta. We think the court has overreached here. We think they've made an undemocratic decision that isn't valid in law, that's an error in law, and that's why we're going to challenge it.
You've kind of downplayed the role of the courts here. I just want to know, at what point, what ruling needs to come down, what appeal needs to be denied before you say that's enough? Or do we reach a point where you say, no, I'm ignoring this and this referendum can go forward?
Well, Supreme Courts we honor those rulings, and that's what I think we have to understand, that a single judge appointed by Justin Trudeau can't override what 700,000 people in this province have said they want. I think that that's if you want to be a democratic government and run a democratic province, there has to be some deference of the court to the democratic process. I just don't simply believe that an unelected judge should be able to run roughshod over all of these democratic provisions, especially when we've been very clear as a legislature that we wanted the Citizen Initiative Act to be very permissive. We understand that if it comes to a point of implementation, there's a duty on us as government to make sure that Aboriginal rights are respected. But it would be impossible for a citizen group to be able to meet that standard. And so that's why we think it needs to be challenged.
A few weeks ago, you ruled out the option of using the Referendum Act to yourself as a government put the independence question on the ballot for October 19th. That was before the Justice Leonard ruling. Now we have Jeffrey Rath and Mitch Sylvester saying that you need to do this if you're interested in your own political self-preservation to stay on the job. Can you please walk us through your thoughts on, at this point, the downsides and upsides of the Alberta government putting forth a Referendum Act question itself on independence?
Well, I have to have that conversation first with my caucus and cabinet, and there is a committee that is that's assessing the Forever Canada petition right now. So it's a bit premature for me to figure out what my caucus and cabinet might want to do.
Let's hear your thinking on this.
Well, again, my thinking is that we should be very permissive, and that citizens should have been allowed to put these questions forward, and then depending on what the outcome is, that's when government acts. And so we're still analyzing what the court judgment said. As I mentioned, we are appealing it. We're waiting for the committee to do their work, and I'll be having a cabinet and caucus meeting next week, and so we'll be able to walk you through it at that time after I've talked to them.